Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. You're very welcome to the programme. We're continuing here at the Ulster American Folk Park. And of course, the Ulster Scots also played an important part in the extension of the frontier when they came to the New World. James Logan of Lurgan, he was Provincial Secretary of Pennsylvania. He encouraged Ulster Scots settlement in the colony and welcomed them as his brave fellow countrymen. He wanted the Ulster Scots to act as a buffer between his fellow Quakers and the Indians. And in 1720 he wrote, "At that time we were apprehensive from the Northern Indians. I therefore thought it might be prudent to plant a settlement of such men as those who formerly had so bravely defended Londonderry and Enniskillen as a frontier in case of any disturbance. These people, if kindly used, will be orderly as they have hitherto been and easily dealt with. They will also, I expect, be a leading example to others." It says actually that he ended up feeling sorry for the Indians, claiming that a settlement of 5 families from the north of Ireland gives me more trouble than 50 of any of other people. The Ulster Scots were not worried, of course, by localities, and to Logan's acute annoyance, they increasingly settled on land without bothering to secure legal rights to it. And according to Logan, they alleged that it was against the laws of God and nature that so much land should be idle while so many Christians wanted it to labour on and raise their bread. And of course, they also played a role in the American Revolution when they came here to the New World. Many Ulster Scots brought with them a strong sense of grievance against the government, and their influence strengthened the growing anti-British feeling among the colonists. George Bancroft, the distinguished American historian, noted, "The first voice publicly raised in America to dissolve all connection with Great Britain came not from the Dutch of New York, nor from the Cavaliers of Virginia, but from the Scotch-Irish Presbyterians." And Hugh Walpole, the literary son of the first British Prime Minister, joked, "I hear that our American cousin has run away with a Scotch-Irish person." A Hessian captain fighting on the British side is recorded as saying, "Call this war by whatever name you may, only call it not an American rebellion. It is nothing more than a Scotch-Irish Presbyterian rebellion." So this is a little house on the prairie. And of course, George Washington is supposed to have said, "If defeated everywhere else, I will make my last stand with the Scotch-Irish of my native Virginia." And there's been many Americans who have their ancestry here in Ireland. Of course, there was even Neil Armstrong, who was the first man on the moon. And I'll show you a wee photo of him that I have here. That's Neil. And he was the first man on the moon. He was from here. So was Davy Crockett, the king of the wild frontier. And there was various other ones as well, even some actors. This is Greer Garson. And it's said that she was that proud of her roots here in Ulster that she sported the Red Hand of Ulster on every car she owned. So this is a great wee booklet here. It's given me a lot of history. It's when Ulster sailed west, Ulster Scots Network, Community Network. Got a lot of information from this wee booklet. So I'm going to mention a few other ones. Of course, there was Ulysses S. Grant. And of course, the S wasn't original. It was a mistake when he joined West Point Cadets as a cadet, the military academy. Someone put the S in, and nobody knew what it stood for. It should have been there. Some said it stood for Simpson because that was his ancestral name, the Simpsons. Of course, I've done a wee video on Grant's ancestral house and church near the Ballygolly roundabout. And he was born in 1822, died in 1885. But some said that it was actually for US Grant, but it was for nothing. It shouldn't have been there. But once it was there, that was it. It wasn't going to be removed. And many of the outstanding soldiers of the American Civil War on both sides of the great conflict were actually of Ulster Scots stock. So Confederate General Stonewall Jackson, Jeb Stuart, I've covered both them. I've covered Jackson's supposedly ancestral house near Portadown, which is really only one wall that's left. I also covered Jeb Stuart, whose ancestry was Londonderry. And of course, there was for other ones as well. And of course, Grant, one historian described Grant as the greatest general of his age and one of the greatest strategists of any age. But I would tend to favour Robert E. Lee, I have to say. I would give my 10 pence worth in there, but who am I? But anyway, if Abraham Lincoln was the Union's political saviour, then Ulysses S. Grant saved the Union militarily, of course. But unfortunately, Grant took a great fondness for the battle. And someone pointed this out to Lincoln one day. And here was Lincoln's response. He says, "I wish some of you would tell me the brand of whiskey that Grant drinks." He says, "I would like to send a barrel of it to my other generals." So certainly Lincoln thought well of Grant. And the 18th president then of the United States, whose ancestry came from Ballygolly, County Tyrone, Grant himself was a conspicuously more successful general than he was a politician, of course. And it's said that he was a man of great personal integrity. So there you go. Ulysses S. Grant, General of the Union Army, and also President of the United States. But there's another gentleman, Samuel Houston, and of course Houston in Texas is named after him. And he was born in 1793, died in 1863. Sam Houston avenged the Alamo by defeating General Santa Anna and the Mexican army at the Battle of San Jacinto on the 21st of April 1836. And actually that's where the idea of chewing gum came, actually, because the General Santa Anna, he suffered from pyorrhea in his gum disease. And what he done was he got this chewing gum substance, he laced it with opium, and he found when he chewed on it, it eased the pain. So somebody took on to the idea, not the opium, but the chewing gum, and hence the chewing gum was invented. Or at least it was sold as chewing gum. So the first president of the independent Republic of Texas, Sam here, had his roots near Ballybully near Ballyclare. Ballybully, I think it is how you pronounce it, and that's in County Antrim. He was born in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. He was a key figure in the history of Texas, and he foolishly served as president of the Republic of Texas. He was senator for Texas after it joined the United States, and finally as governor. And indeed, Houston is the only person in the United States history to have been the governor of two different states, strangely enough. And that was Tennessee and Texas. And although he was a slave owner and opponent of abolition, Houston refused, because of his unionist convictions, to swear allegiance to the Confederacy when Texas seceded from the Union. To avoid bloodshed, he declined the offer of a Union army to put down the rebellion, and instead retired to Huntsville, Texas, where he died before the end of the Civil War. So the city of Houston was named in his honour, and Houston's reputation survived his death. Posthumous commemoration has included a memorial, museum, a United States Army base, national forest, historical park, university, and the largest freestanding statue of an American figure. And of course, Sam Houston also, his descendants hails from in County Antrim, which is Coolwater, because the Covenanter Church there, Coolwater Covenanter Church, David Houston, he was a preacher of the Covenanters, the early Covenanters in the 1600s, and he came there to that area. Of course, he was running from the authorities because they had to meet in conventicles, which were illegal meetings. They weren't allowed to meet openly as Presbyterians by the authorities. And it said actually that he preached at one of the conventicles at near Ballymena, at the Black Hole. So basically, his brother John Houston, I think it was John, you called him, don't quote me on that, but I think it was John. I've actually covered it in video. But he ended up going to America. And of course, his descendant was none other than Sam Houston, from where we get Houston in Texas. So incredible, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. So it's been a great wee day here. And of course, another gentleman with roots here in County Antrim, near Carrickfergus, is Andrew Jackson. And there's a wee house there. It's not his ancestral house, but it's in the vicinity of where his ancestral house is, near Carrickfergus there. And I've done a wee video of that. But he was born in 1767. He died in 1845. He's known as Old Hickory. That was his nickname. And he was the first president to be elected from west of the Appalachians. Now, unlike his predecessors, he was not born to great privilege, and he was the first president to be born in a log cabin. So as the founder of the Democratic Party, he was the first president to found a modern political party. And he was the first president to expand the role and powers of the presidency, so much so that his opponents bitterly denounced him as King Andrew I. So they must have thought he was a wee bit of a dictator. So Jackson was the first and remains arguably the greatest of a long line of Ulster Scots presidents. The 8th president's parents, as I say, they hailed from Bonnybefore, near Carrickfergus, County Antrim. Now, James Polk, who was born in 1795, died in 1849. James Buchanan, who was born in 1791, died in 1868. They were the 11th and the 15th presidents of the United States, respectively. And they were prodigies of Jackson. And Polk's roots were in County Londonderry, while Buchanan's were in counties Donegal and Tyrone. And as I say, we also saw the Mellon House there, or at least a replica of the Mellon House when they came to America. Of course, Samuel Morse, he also derives from Ireland, the inventor of the Morse code. And there's somebody else who actually has her connections in Ireland, and it's this lady here. If you know who she is, that's Dolly Parton. And she was born in 1946. I'm not sure if she's still alive or not. But anyway, Dolly Parton, she's known as the Queen of Country. And she's a Grammy Award winning American singer, songwriter, author, actress and philanthropist, with 25 #1 singles and a record number of top 10 country albums to her credit. And Dolly Parton is the most successful female artist in the history of country music. And she's known for her distinctive Tennessee Mountain soprano voice, her occasionally body humour, flamboyant dress sense, and her stunning figure. Dolly Parton is extremely proud of her Scotch-Irish ancestry and generously acknowledges the massive influence of her roots on her music. So there you go. That's another one. And then there's this man here, John Wayne. And of course I've done a video on him, fantastic history. John Wayne was born 1907, he died 1979. He was born Marion Michael Morrison. He made over 80 films, and many of them westerns, in which he often played the role of either a warm-hearted gunfighter or a lawman. He was famous for his distinctive voice, walk, and height, and he became an American icon. That's where you get that "get off your horse and drink your milk." His last film was The Shootist, 1976, and his main character, who he played, J.B. Brooks, was dying of cancer, the illness to which actually Wayne himself would die 3 years later. So he's from here as well. Wayne's ancestors came from Bushmills, County Antrim. That's near the site of the world famous Giant's Causeway. And Jimmy Stewart, who was born 1908, died 1997, another Western actor, very popular. He's also of Ulster Scots descent. And the reason how John Wayne ended up to be born in America was because his ancestor actually fled to America because he was accused of taking part in the 1798 rebellion. So he fled there, and that's how John Wayne then ended up being born in America. So I want to leave you with one more before we wrap this wee video up, and that's Woodrow Wilson, and that's Woodrow. And Woodrow was he was born in 1856, he died 1924. He was the 20th president and former president of Princeton, and he led the United States into the Great War in 1917. And he became the leading exponent of the League of Nations at the Paris Peace Conference of 1919. Now, Wilson became the second American president to win the Nobel Prize for Peace. James Wilson, his grandfather, emigrated to the United States from near Strabane in County Tyrone in 1807. And James Wilson married Annie Adams, another Ulster immigrant. And Joseph Ruggles Wilson, Wilson's father, was a Pennsylvania minister of indomitable character and theological distinction, who left a lasting impression upon the character of his son. And the first American president to win the Nobel Peace Prize was Theodore Roosevelt in 1906. And Roosevelt won the prize for his successful mediation to end the Russo-Japanese War and for his interest in arbitration. So despite his obviously Dutch name, the 26th president nevertheless has significant Ulster Scots ancestry. And Jimmy Carter, the 39th president, won the Nobel Prize in 2002. So that's us back to where I started earlier, at the centre. So thanks for watching, and God bless.